Hello, everyone. A very warm welcome to your own Silicon Valley Tech Talks show, your go to place to learn about technology trends and insights directly from the leaders. In today's show, we'll talk about a unique initiative by Ericsson, Vonage, and multiple big mobile network operators around the world, in which these entities are forming a company which will make network APIs available for developer community. This way, developer community can access and configure capabilities in the network. This is believed to create new innovation and monetization opportunities in the ecosystem. We are fortunate to have Joachim Sorelius as our guest today. Joachim is Vice President and Head of Global Network Platform at Ericsson. He's spearheading this initiative from Ericsson's side. We'll talk to Joachim and learn a bit more about the business model and impact of this initiative. So, without any further delay, let's go and talk to Joachim and learn from his insights. Hello, Joachim. Welcome to our show. How are you doing today?
Really good. Thank you, Faisal. Great to be in touch with you again. It's been a long time.
Awesome. So, Joachim, we know that Ericsson, Vonage, and multiple big operators have started this initiative where they are forming a company, and this company is going to make network APIs available for developer community, and that is believed to create more innovation and monetization opportunities for the ecosystem. Can you tell us a bit more about the objective of forming this company and what value it will create and how? And perhaps as you answer that, maybe you can cover a brief definition of what network API is.
Yeah, of course. Developers in general are very familiar with APIs or application programmable interfaces. In short, it's a means for one software to talk to another in a standardized way, right? And a network API is basically the same thing, except it's a way for a software to talk, a software application to get information or even configure sometimes a mobile network. So examples of network APIs that have been along for a long time is the CPaaS APIs, SMS, voice, and video. I mean, you're sure, Faisal, you've got these SMSs that reminds you of going to the dentist or something like that. That's actually a network capability that has been made available inside an application. But the 5G mobile networks, they have so many more capabilities that are not yet available in an intuitive way to developers. So that is really what this company aims to accelerate. And the problem we're solving is really that of complexity. So to access these more advanced 5G network capabilities, a developer platform such as Vonage today would have to enter a relationship with each and every CSP or operator independently and need to have all these CSPs in one geographical area signed up in order to make it worthwhile for the developers to use the network API. In the same way, a CSP who would like to monetize their network assets and make their APIs available to the developer platforms would have to strike a deal or get into an agreement with each independent developer platform individually in order to maximize their exposure. So what we're doing with this NewCo, as we call it, because the name is not settled yet, is to remove all that complexity and create one global network API aggregation layer. So developer platforms like Vonage and its peers can connect to this and get immediate access to all the CSPs that are already onboarded. And conversely, the CSPs that connect to this platform with their network APIs get access to all the developer platforms that are already connected. So Vonage and Google have already signed up to be customers to this platform, and 12 CSPs have signed up to provide their network APIs to the venture, which gives NewCo, this platform company, access to the network APIs in the most important geographies like US, Spain, and Germany. So we believe that this will really provide network APIs to the millions of developers, to Google and Vonage to start with, later with more developer platforms. And this will greatly accelerate, I think, the network API business globally.
A very quick follow-up clarifications, Joachim. By CSPs, I'm assuming you are referring to mobile network operators. And my second follow-up question is that the name of the new company has not been finalized. So, do you expect it to be announced in the near future?
Yeah, so we are, I mean, absolutely. CSP as an operator is the terminology I use interchangeably here. And the name, we are right now going through a branding exercise and the naming exercise together with the CSP partners to get that settled. So hopefully it will be done soon.
Cool. Can you give us some examples of the network capabilities that can be accessed through these APIs? And as a result, what new use cases can be created? What new value can be created?
Sure. So let me unpack this a little bit. So when we look at the total addressable market, basically for network APIs, basically how much developers are prepared to pay for them and what they would like to use in their applications, we see that, by the way, it's around 10 to 20 billion US dollars in 2030. So it's promising to be a very big market. What we see is that there are 3 or 4 main segments of network capabilities, 5G network capabilities that really stand out. The by far biggest one in terms of value is what we call quality of service, which is the capability that the 5G network has to offer a predetermined service level agreement, an SLA, between the application and the network. That can be a predetermined latency, a bit rate, or a reliability. This corresponds to about 40% of the total addressable market that I mentioned. The second largest segment is identity and security. We know that fraud is a big concern and costs billions of dollars globally. Here, the APIs can leverage the excellent security and authentication mechanism that's built into the 5G networks from start. And the third one, biggest one, is the one of location. Mobile networks knows at any given time exactly where the mobile device is, which makes mobile networks uniquely well positioned for location verification or location retrieval. So together, these 3 areas cover around 75% of the total addressable market, and the remaining part is made up of capabilities to expose information about the device itself, if it's connected, if it's roaming, and information about the network itself. I mean, what is the congestion level? How many users are connected in a certain area, and so on. So clearly, if we could, or when we translate these network capability into easy to use network APIs, they can be incorporated into applications standalone by themselves or in combination with other APIs, and they could serve any imaginable use case. Example, I mean, authentication and location together are very powerful tools for fraud prevention used in banking and retail applications. Quality of service that can be used to provide a predictable performance for a video call, for example, like the one we have now. If we were doing this over video, it would be very useful. Or quality of service can also be used to ensure that the point of sales device, when you pay with your credit card, that transaction is always performed in a very reliable and fast way, regardless of the congestion of the network, if you are at a concert or a hockey game or something like that. And in the end, by putting all these network capabilities at the fingertips, if you would like, of developers and allowing them to understand what to do and combine them in different ways, I think it's only their imagination that will stop what kind of use cases they can come up with.
If you look at the network stack, you have physical layer, you have MAC, radio control, data application, right? So
Mhm.
deeper you go or deeper you penetrate in the stack, harder it is in terms of implementation. These network APIs, how deep these will be penetrated into the stack. I'm asking you this because the new mobile network operators who want to join this company and they want to adopt these APIs, if these APIs are penetrated deeper into the stack, it will be harder for them to implement these network APIs, and hence it will be harder for them to join this initiative. So, what do you think about it?
Right, that's a very, very good point and very good observation. So, in general, all network API calls are terminated in the core network of the CSP or the operator. However, like you said, to fulfill the API call, the network might go to different level of depth in the stack to actually get the answer that the API call is going for. Take the location API, for example. For a basic location verification algorithm for a financial transaction, it might be enough to know in which general area the user is in. This could be achieved, for example, by extracting the location that the network holds about the device, which is which cell it is, which paging area it is. So that's sort of the general location. But for more advanced use cases like drone management, for example, then the API call would actually need to ask the network the exact location of the actual device. And then the network might be needed to query the device about its location, which is a totally different function just to store the location of the device on a general level. I think the most striking example of this difference in complexity is the quality of service API. So here the API call is really asking for a service level agreement between the application and the network. And the network needs to be able to configure all of its components across all the layers in the stack, like you said, to fulfill at least the very demanding SLAs. And only the most advanced CSPs that have really invested a lot in the network will be able to fulfill those very advanced API calls. So there is a bit of a difference between from API to API, and I think this is the reason why the network API business starts with the more, let's call it more straightforward APIs, like in authentication, like I talked about, where the most likelihood to get support from the largest number of CSPs is present.
How will these network APIs be standardized? Through the existing Camara initiative, or what about 6G standardization? How will all this work in terms of standardization?
Right, so Camara for the service API, the actual user plane of the API, if you like, and TM Forum for operate API, that is how you connect to an application to a mobile network. Those are currently the most promising standardization initiatives, and those are the ones that we mainly work with. Now, you should note also that most of the APIs that are currently considered in Camara and Open Gateway, they originate, if you would like, from the telco industry, because really the telco industry that takes the initiative for this network exposure. So this is our guess of, with all our knowledge that we have built from Ericsson and the operators, our best guess of what the developers will find useful. But going forward, I think it's super important that we start to close the loop also with the developers, that as they start to use network APIs more frequently, Camara and others will have to be updated with the API portfolio that really takes their feedback into account. So I think that is sort of the next step to get the developers more involved in the standardization and the API definition.
Bigger the ecosystem of mobile network operators which join this initiative, more effective it will be. Think about scenario where a certain set of mobile network operators only are supporting it. Developers cannot just create applications for that specific subset of region, right? So we need a bigger ecosystem eventually of mobile network operators joining this. Also, I think other infrastructure or network equipment provider companies should also join this if we really wanted to get maximum benefit out of it. So, with that notion in mind, what are you doing to help other mobile network operators or other infrastructure companies to also join this initiative?
Right. So first of all, I mean, this venture that we now have announced with the 12 CSPs and with Vonage and Google as customers, it is a fully open venture. Newco, as we call the company in the interim here, is completely agnostic to who is the infrastructure vendor of the CSP, first of all. In addition, it's open to any developer platform as a customer, be it a CPaaS player or a HCP or a system integrator or an ISV. And like you mentioned, Faisal, in order for this industry to succeed, we will require hundreds of CSPs to expose network APIs, and we want all CSPs to join this initiative as commercial partners. And there is no difference between being a founding partner or commercial partner. All will benefit from the same favorable and transparent terms. You know, in telecoms, we often talk about FRAND, fair, reasonable, and non-discriminatory, and that is definitely a mindset that we use here as well. Since we announced this venture, we have noticed a really, really large increase in CSPs who wants to join, which is really, really promising, I think, and very encouraging. And our message is clear. We want all CSPs to join, and we will onboard CSPs in a very structured manner, starting with the countries and regions with the highest demand for network API, and then spreading this globally across the world. So it's an open venture. All developer platforms are welcome as customers, and we encourage all CSPs to join.
Thank you very much, Joachim, for joining our show. It was pleasure to have you, and I'm sure audience learned a lot from your insights.
Faisal, it was a great pleasure to talk to you again.
Thank you.